So my topic is deploying at scale. Really, a lot of this comes from my experience within LPV projects and within stadiums. I'm Chris Reed. You can hit me at the CM Reed on Twitter. Lead network engineer for BEI Networks. We're a services organization out of New Hampshire. I've been wired and wireless networking since 2009, and then really shifted into wireless specifically in right around 2011. And I've been the lead engineer for one college and 3 NFL stadiums for the deployments. I submitted the topic to Keith talking about scale and was thinking, yeah, these projects, these are the processes that I use within these large projects. But the more and more that I thought about it, the more and more I realized that those same processes are used at my small scale sites, that when I'm deploying 15 APs, the same methodologies are used because you want the same level of consistency, you want the same level of accuracy at large scale as you do small scale. So when I started to realize that the small scale worked too, I wanted to change the name of the topic. So we'll start there. The problem that we run into is that handcrafted does not work when you're talking even 15, when you're talking 15 or 1,000 APs. You've got, handcrafted doesn't work at scale when you've got 15 to 1,000 APs. You don't take an AP out of the box, you don't put it on your desk, you don't drop a label on it, you don't configure it, you don't throw it up with your ladder and then go back and do it again with another one. You want to create an assembly line. You want to break those down into small components, hand it off to a low voltage group. If you're lucky, that group is internal. If you're not, it's external. So you want to break those implementation processes down into smaller components. You want to make that assembly line because it's fast, because it's consistent, because it's accurate, and you can train junior resources on small, specific tasks that can be repeated. With our LPV projects, we really try to get everything into one spot. Is that we get it all into one area, we set up our assembly line and start to unbox the APs. The labeling and the scanning happens at the same time. The label always comes out of the spreadsheet document with the name at the same time that it's being scanned in. Do not, under any circumstances at that scale, allow for manual entry of MAC address or serial number. Anything that you need to key on to be able to configure, if it's manually entered, it will be wrong, and you're going to run into problems with it. You can also start to assemble at this stage as well. If you know you're only going to be using the ceiling mount grids, get rid of the other components of that. When it gets out into the field, you don't want anything for the installers that they don't need, and you can get rid of the trash all at one place. You can also, once you've got things named and you've got things labeled, you can group them into sections. In LPV projects, these may be individual sections within a stadium. It may be the suite areas. When you're talking campus, you may be grouping things into building to building. The advantage of that is again, letting the low voltage installer do what they want to do, or do what they do best, and take some of the decision making away. If you're only giving them the APs to pull from that are going in that section, they don't have to choose from 1,200 APs and 1,200 different antennas. They only get to choose from what's going in that area. It's much easier for them to make a good decision. The assembly's all in one spot. This is specific to an LPV project, and we've got enclosures there. The really cool thing about these enclosures is that we can mount the AP in the enclosure and mount it after the fact. So if you can do that, again, you get to have it all happen in one place. You get a single guy that knows how to mount them. You get a single guy that knows how to connect the antenna leads, and you can get as much done in this spot as you can before it moves out to the installers. So if you're doing directional antennas within the enclosure, if you can mount it with the directional antenna in there, set that angle there. That decision-making doesn't have to happen in the field. It can happen at this spot where you get that point of quality control. You can walk through and you can look at those antenna angles before they go out. You can make sure that the right antenna is going to the right section before it gets out into the field. The image on the right, we've got them all assembled. There's APs and antennas in there. The boxes are labeled and they're grouped into sections. So they just grab a bundle of enclosures, walk out there. This was an underseat deployment, so there's section, row, and seat right on the enclosure. Someone doesn't even need to bring documentation with them for this specific setup. They just look at it, section, row, seat, drop it there, and bolt the enclosure in place. Everything's done for them except for connecting that patch cable. For things that aren't under seat and aren't as clear, your documentation is so important. You want to make it as clear as possible, and you want to give the installers only what they need. They don't need to know about the channels that you're using or the powers that you're setting on the radio within the spreadsheet. Just give them what they need. One really cool thing that we use specifically within our LPV projects, but it's pushing to others, is Visio can use a spreadsheet as an object database. So you can have an object on a Visio that represents an AP, and then you can do views and break down different views showing this object has this name and this antenna type at this angle. You can very quickly hand off different documentation to different people. If you can do mock-ups or drawings or anything to show them how these things are being deployed, do it. The one on the right, if you can't see it, it's got both the height and the angle. You can put the AP on there, you can put the antenna on there, make it easy to see. If you can do a walkthrough, do it. Anytime you can mark, and again, take that decision-making away from the guys in the field. If you can mark it, it's really easy for them to put it in the right spot. Installation is always the point of no return. You want to get a couple of APs up and ready to go, and you want to validate that installation before it goes further. If you can get 2 overheads in a section in place, do your testing, confirm your cell edge, and then let it go. If they've got 100 APs out that are all wrong, it's going to be really tough for you to try to convince them to go back and change it. If they've only done 2, you can fix things before things degrade. And on the configuration side, don't click through the GUI. Jake and Ryan had a great Python class to be able to configure these things that can reference your spreadsheet that you've already created. You can hire someone to create a little internal app to be able to do that. If you're doing 1,200 APs, 40 seconds per AP, it's going to take you 15 hours to configure them. And then you're going to get a call that they want the names changed. And you'll have to do it again. Script it when you can. The best money we ever paid was for the application that we used to script these. It's a nice graphic interface on the front. Not everyone needs to know Python, although they all should. And the most important piece of all of this is find partners that you trust, internal, external. If they're engaged and involved in this project and want the project to succeed as much as you do, it's going to be fun. If they don't, it's going to be awful. And that's my time.